Welcome to Hell is for Children, a BlogTalk Radio program for and by protective mothers with your host, Geerte Frenken. So what's a protective mother? A protective mother tries to protect her child or children from their abusive father by many means necessary. Yes, you can call in. Are you ready? Operation Expose continues.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the third episode of Hell is for Children. This show is on every Saturday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, which is currently at 5 o'clock European Standard Time. And the call-in number is 347-850-8617. And I'd like to start to thank Bobby Biesinger from WINN, the owner of this radio station, for providing us with this platform to talk about the plight of protective mothers globally. And I have two guests on today, and I'd like to start with the first guest, which is protective mama Kristen from Denmark, who has her kids stuck in New York City, and we want to hear from her what it's like to be in the situation that she's in. And I am hoping that Kristen is on. Hi, Kristen. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Welcome to the show. I'm really, really happy to have you on. You might have listened to my first show, and the guests might have listened to the first show of Hell is for Children, where I shared my international case with the United States, my international custody case. And at that time, I also had a guest on from the Netherlands who had her kids stuck in the United States as well. And you're in this situation as well, and you're Danish, right?
Yes, I'm Danish citizen, and all my kids are Danish citizens, and the father is Danish citizen as well.
So the father's Danish, and the kids are Danish, and you are Danish, but your kids are stuck in the United States.
Correct.
Right. Well, why don't you tell us your story so we kind of get an idea of what's happening in your situation, how you got into that situation.
Yeah, I try to compress my story and my case because it's very long and complicated. I was married to this man twice and went through a divorce twice. So let me start. My kids were born in London, but our family for both sides lived in Denmark. We got married in 1993. We had 4 children, but lost our first son when he was 20 months old in a tragic accident. We had 3 children. Yeah, we had 3 children in the following years. A daughter in 1998, another son in 2000, and another daughter in 2002, and I was a stay-at-home mom. In 2003, we moved to Atlanta, Georgia, for my then husband's new adventure career. In 2006, he moved to London for another new career adventure while I stayed with the children in Georgia. In 2007, I filed for divorce, and it was finalized in 2009. Shortly after divorce, my ex-husband, he moved to New York, Manhattan. I was on a student visa, and in 2010, I had problem finding childcare that would work with my class schedule, as I had to be a full-time student all the time in order to maintain my student visa. I wanted to go home due to my visa situation, but my ex-husband threatened to take the children away from me if I did not comply with his offer of remarrying him. Due to my fear of losing the children, I got remarried in 2010, but we kept living separate lives. In the new marriage, he took advantage of the fact that there was no order in place and he controlled everything in my life through emotional and financial threats. He demanded to stay in the house where I lived with the children against my will, where he came for visitation. He went through my stuff in the house. It was like a prison. I suffered from almost daily night sweat, night panic attack, chest pain that were diagnosed as symptoms of stress by my doctor. I could not take it anymore with his condition and threats, and I filed for divorce in 2012. The divorce was messy, and his attorney kept filing papers in hope that I would eventually give up emotionally and financially. My visa was depending on his visa, and following the divorce, it would become invalid. I could not remain in the U.S., which he knew. I confronted him again with the fact that I needed to return to Europe due to my visa, and he responded that he would first persuade our oldest daughter to live with him, then our son, and then he would take my youngest daughter. My attorney asked his attorney permission for me to leave the country with the children, but with no success. It had the opposite effect, as my ex-husband took the children's passport away from me and refused to return them unless the judge ordered him to do so. His attorney told my attorney that if the children would sign an affidavit that they would live with me if I moved to Europe, then he would not pursue a custody battle during the trial. I was against getting the children involved and having them sign an affidavit, but I did not have any choice due to the pressure from his father and the fact that he had taken possession of the children's passport and the financial aspect of additional attorney fees for a custody battle. The children wanted to live with me, but they were afraid of upsetting their father, and at the same time did not know what to believe, as the father had sent them a manipulated email from me to him, making them believe that I was tricking them and falsely claiming that I could not stay in the U.S. My oldest daughter did not want to sign an affidavit, as she did not believe my need to leave. She was also mad at me for getting them to sign an affidavit. It was part of the father's elaborated scheme to turn her against me and make me look bad, and in the end, it did not make any difference. She said, what kind of mother would do this to her own children, when the matter of the fact was that I was forced to do it by the father. 1 week after the children signed the affidavit, my ex-husband came on a non-agreed visitation weekend. I got our oldest daughter and son to sign an affidavit that they would move to him if I moved back to Europe. He had made false claims to them that it did not mean anything other than that they could stay in Georgia if they signed it. Trial position from the father was automatic change of custody if I moved out of the U.S. Trial position for me was no automatic change of physical custody if I moved back to Europe. The judge was presented with the fact that my visa expired when the divorce was finalized and my difficulty of getting a new visa. The attorneys presented three different parenting claims and an affidavit signed by the children for the father and me. The judge chose one of the parenting claims and made correction. I was awarded physical custody of the children with no requirement to stay in the U.S. for the right to choose where I want to live with the children. No automatic change of custody if I move out of the U.S. The divorce was finalized in June 2014. During the second divorce, it became obvious that his motive for the marriage was not only to control me, but also commit fraudulent activities for financial gain by using my identity. I found out about his illegal activities during discovery and after being contacted by IRS and law enforcement. IRS have declared all tax returns invalid. He had filed in my name, and the tax return of mine, he had amended the false claim of residency by falsifying my signature. After the divorce in June 2014, I was contacted by law enforcement in New York City and cooperated with them. I was informed that he was served by New York City and New York State for fraud and tax evasion and pleaded guilty in order to avoid criminal charges. I also learned that he had not paid taxes in any country while he was living and working full-time in England. We were still married and he had not disclosed several accounts overseas in Europe during the first divorce. After the divorce, my attorney told me that I could move back to Denmark with the children based on the judge's ruling. It was also verified by 2 other attorneys I met. No one mentioned anything about the Hague Convention. I had planned to relocate to Europe immediately after the divorce due to my visa situation until I found out that our daughter was suffering from a serious substance abuse. I spoke with an immigration attorney that confirmed that I was able to stay in the U.S. legally as an out-of-status for an additional 180 days, but the status would not allow me to work. 1 month before the divorce trial, our oldest daughter turned her back against me from one day to another. I lost control and any respect from her due to the father's continued interference, overruling of the house role, and parenting our nation against me. I wanted her to get some help through counseling, but he only wanted her to get help if she moved to his place in New York City. Eventually, in June 2014, he finally agreed for her to attend sessions, but when her therapist did not support for her to live with him, he did not want her to continue sessions. After I found evidence of her drug abuse, selling drugs, getting advice from the police and her counselor, I had her forced admitted for treatment of drug abuse as she was unwilling to be accessed. I also found out about her father's encouragement for her to do drugs and drinking, his encouragement to her to sneak out, calling the house a prison, and how he had alienated her against me by making false claims and statements about me. Based on the evidence I had, her counselor and the police told me that there was no way that the father would get custody. I went to court as the father was threatening to discharge her and wanted to get custody of her. He also filed a contempt of court for not consulting him properly about admitting our daughter to drug rehab, the threat of putting me in prison if I did not discharge her for treatment. However, it was overruled by the judge and decided that she should continue her treatment. My daughter's caseworker stated her concern of our daughter moving to New York City, but was afraid to say too much, according to the report. Despite mounting evidence that showed the father's very cold judgment and the danger of her living with him, he was awarded primary custody because my daughter chose to live with her father, where she would have as little supervision as possible. It was ordered for her doctor's advice and to continue treatment, but her father changed doctors so many times when I got involved, and the truth came out, and the doctor did not agree with him, so to follow the doctor's advice got time. About 1 month after he was awarded custody, he discharged her for treatment before she had completed the program against medical advice and after she failed 3 drug tests, according to a medical report. I also learned that she was traveling on her own to Georgia to visit her friends she was doing drugs for. The environment the judge thought she would benefit from being away from. I contacted Child Protective Services, but no one was taking anything seriously. Apart from my daughter's treatment for drug abuse, several court cases prevented me from moving back to Denmark as planned due to his unwillingness to comply with court order, including paying child support, paying for our daughter's medical fees I was awarded. In December, I informed my ex-husband that the children and I were going to Denmark to celebrate Christmas with the family. After I had left, he responded that the children could not re-enter school due to their visa. At that point, I did not have any other choice to remain in Denmark due to my own visa status that would not allow me to enroll them into school. At the same time, I was pregnant with my boyfriend's child, but our relationship has suffered from all the court cases. In January 2015, I informed my ex-husband that I simply did not have any other choice than to remain in Denmark. We stayed at my parents' house until we found an apartment, and my friends in the U.S. helped me ship my things over. My ex-husband did not protest, and we agreed for the children to spend the winter break with him in New York City. He suggested that our son would try Denmark for 6 months and wanted the children to qualify for Danish student aid, which they would qualify as Danish citizens after living 3 years in Denmark before they were enrolled in college. I applied for a tourist visa for the children to enter the U.S. that he reimbursed me for. On the day when the children returned from their winter break in New York City, I received an email from my ex-husband accusing me of being an international kidnapper, and I would not be able to enter the U.S. again. He said he had involved the children as well. The children was very different after this day with their father. Her family felt the same way. They did not have a chance to find peace and find themselves here, while he did everything to sabotage it and telling them that I was an international kidnapper and they were to be sent back in 2-3 months, 1 month after they moved to Denmark. What I did not know was the children had entered the U.S. during their winter break on a visa, and he could then claim they were residents in the U.S. during their new visa. a visa he applied for when he took possession of a passport during the divorce. In the end of March 2015, I was informed that the father had filed a hate petition against me just before I was going to give birth. I went to trial in Denmark 3 weeks after having given birth. The father took the children out of school after the trial without my knowledge and consent and brought them back the day before they were to speak to the psychiatrist and the judge. Due to my past experiments, I knew the children would be affected for what he would say to the psychiatrist and judge. A few days before the divorce trial, he had held the kids against an agreement in case they were to speak to the judge. During the hate trial, my ex-husband used hearsay and made false claims, including that during the divorce trial had decided to remain in the U.S. and he had not committed fraud. My Danish attorney argued to the court that the judge in Georgia had made the decision in parenting plan based on my need to relocate, and she was presented with the fact that my visa expired following the divorce. She also argued that my ex-husband was on a temporary visa, and due to his illegal activities in the U.S., he did not qualify for a green card and could be deported any time. But it was obvious that the judge had already made a decision before the case was presented in the court, since she asked my ex-husband when he would like to have the children returned to him before the trial had begun. The judge and the psychiatrist spent just 20 minutes on each trial to determine that the children would not suffer for being sent back to the father in New York. It was obvious that the children did not understand the consequences of their conversation with the judge and the psychiatrist. My daughter was eager to see her friends in Georgia, but when she realized she could not come back to me, she broke down in tears and said I did not want to go. But then it was too late. While I was waiting for the judge's decision, I proposed a settlement to my ex-husband against my wishes due to my fear of getting a kidnap charge on my back and not be able to see my kids again. The settlement proposed that the kids would be sent back to him, but I would see them during the children's school holidays, and they would have a chance to be sent back if they wished, and we would keep joint custody of the children, and the kidnapping charge would be dropped. But as expected, he did not agree with the settlement. My attorney sent proof to the judge that my ex-husband had lied in court, including his fraud activities in the U.S. However, I could not prove that what he thought had said happened and was presented during the divorce trial, as I did not have the court transcript from Georgia. The judge did not respond to the false statement my ex-husband had made during the trial. I received a ruling from the judge on June 1st, 2015. She believed I had adopted the children. I had not gotten consent from the court and my ex-husband to move. There was no consideration for the fact that the father had put up a trap in regards to the children's visa, the fact that they had traveled to him for a winter break. And he had stated in an email that he would give our son a 6-month trial in Denmark. And they were only on a temporary visa, and the likelihood of him getting deported by immigration authority any time, and the lack of relationship with my oldest daughter during his alienation. Furthermore, they were not sent back to the habitual residence, but to a state they had never lived in, and that did not have jurisdiction over them. I appealed the case of a hope that the Danish authority would give me a chance to submit new evidence, as I was planning to present the court transcript from the divorce in order to prove what was discussed during the trial. But my appeal was denied. All this hate intervention has done is destroy and break my family apart. Unfortunately, the reality is that I have lost all my parental rights. I cannot risk going back to the U.S. due to my ex-husband's threat and suffer the expense of hiring an attorney. Apparently, the court does not think it is important for the children to have a relationship with their mother, a mother they have lived along with for the last 9 years. Just send them back with no regard to future contact between the mother and the children. I still have physical custody of the children to this day, as no change of custody has taken place. So that was my case. It was long. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's long and it's complex, and it's sometimes hard to hear you because you have quite of a heavy accent, a Danish accent, and the situation is also very complex, and you read it quite fast. So I want to kind of try and because I know that you're really upset, and there's a lot of emotion for you into this, and rightfully so, because this is an awful situation. And I've looked at your case, so I know a little bit. But let's try and simplify it for the listeners, because you're giving them a whole bunch of information, and it's like, oh my God, what's happening here? We're dealing with Denmark, we're dealing with London, we're dealing with Georgia, we're dealing with New York. And but from what and it's confusing for me too, right? And this is what happens a lot. These stories are so complex that when you try to inform someone else of it, it's like, what's happening here, and then you kind of lose them, right? And so we want to make sure that everyone is understanding of what's happening. So basically, your ex is also Danish, and you're Danish. How many kids are involved in total? 2, right? Your son and your daughter are now in the United States, yes?
Yes, correct, yeah.
How old is your oldest? Your son is the oldest one, yes?
My daughter, he got custody after her, drug abuse. She's turning 18 in April.
Okay, so your daughter is the oldest one.
Yes.
And she's about to turn 18. And your son is? How old is your son?
He just turned 16 in February.
Okay, so at this point, so all the entire complexity that you just shared with us, right? Let's stay where we are right now. Your ex is Danish. He's living in the United States, and he got a visa. He's got a green card, yes?
No, he has no green card.
He has no green card.
No green card, only temporary visa.
He's got a temporary visa despite the fact that he has criminal charges against him and the drug abuse issues?
No, he has no criminal. They didn't charge him for any criminal activities, but he pays himself out of it. But he has done so much, falsifying my signature so many times, amended my tax returns, and taking funds from IS. I mean, there's so many things what he has done that. So
he's basically committed illegal things, but you haven't been able to fight it because you don't have the money to hire a lawyer and to even point this out. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, it was pointed out during the divorce trial, but he lied during his testimony.
Right.
So, yeah. Okay. I mean, he lied in the Danish court as well. So, I mean, I've spoken to immigration attorneys and everything he has done. I mean, because if you steal money for the government for over $10,000, you can't get a green card. But we talk about a lot more than this.
So they know that he has committed all this fraud, and that's why he can't get a green card?
He has committed all this fraud, and he does not qualify for a green card.
That's insane, right?
Yeah, unless he's lying to his green card process. But then if they find out afterwards, they can still deport him, right? So I mean, it's like every time I go to court with him, he will lie about things. I mean, I had this in the court transcript. He lied about his fraud, and he did that during the Hague Convention trial. But what is so worrying, is that he keeps lying, and even the judge don't really care. I mean, the judge in Denmark didn't care that he, I had proof that he lied, about his fraud. And so the kids are sent back to the state where there's uncertainty when they're going to be kicked out.
So do the kids have do the kids have permits to stay in the States?
No, they were not born in America. They only have Danish citizenship, and they're depending on the father's visa. So, if he's kicked out, they're kicked out as well.
But don't the children also have to have their own permits to be there?
It's depending on the father's visa.
Okay. So how strange! What a strange situation. So your Danish ex with your Danish kids, and they're in the United States, and he doesn't even have a permanent visa, and the kids are stuck there with him. But from what I understand from your story, because it's very complex, so I'm just trying to kind of catch up on where you are now in it, that if your son is 16 and your daughter's 18, they should be able to leave, because the Hague Convention treaty is only up till age 16, right?
I know. But the thing is that the father has so much power over them. They cannot, be disloyal to him. And there's loyalty issues, and often the fathers will say horrible things about the mothers to the children, and the children don't know what to believe anymore, so they just stay with them, I guess. So do you have any contact with your daughter and your son? My oldest daughter is, I lost contact. Most contact. And my two other children, I have a hard time getting in contact with. They're making excuses. They can't speak to me. I really don't know what's going on in their life. It's like I hardly know them anymore, because I know my oldest daughter told me that the father showed them emails from me, and I know those emails. He has manipulated emails before from me to him. So he would put something.
So let's first clarify. So you have one daughter there and one son, and more children over there too?
I have 3 children in the States right now.
3. Okay. So how old is the youngest one?
13.
13, and that's your son or a daughter?
That's my daughter. So my oldest one is a daughter, and the middle one is a son, and then the youngest one is a daughter again.
How long have you not had real talks with them?
Well, they were sent back in July 2015, and then they came to see me for Christmas. I only saw my oldest daughter only saw for 2 days. But that was part of his claim, because he served me with a court case while I was having Christmas lunch with my parents. So he figured out where I was with the kids, and the police came to my house to serve me a court case in America. He sued me in America for attorney fees. That's something I didn't mention here, but everything is so complex. But anyway, he sued me for attorney fees. And attorney fees, he was giving free legal counsel in Denmark, and he rejected it. So he could sue me for attorney fees instead. And when I responded to his claim and all his false allegation and all the emails and all the documentation, he dropped the case the day after. It's just legal harassment. He's doing.
And 3 children is a lot. I mean, to have 3 kids stuck over there, and they don't really know what's going on, and you don't have contact with them where you can be actually share what's going on. They must be extremely confused as to why this is all happening. And it sounds like they've been moved around a lot as well, from Denmark to London to the United States and then back again. And what a disaster!
They were born in London, and then we moved to Atlanta. And then
so how come? So if they were born in London, can you start a Hague Convention trial up from there, because they're English citizens?
No, they're actually only Danish citizens. When they, I think when they're 18 or 21, they can choose if they want to be British citizens. But right now, they're only Danish citizens.
Okay. But so you lost the Hague Convention trial against him?
No, he filed a Hague Convention against me in Denmark after the winter break to him in New York. They went to winter break, and they came in on a visa I did not know about, because in America even though I have difficult custody of them, he can file a visa I don't know anything about, and he doesn't need to get my consent, or signature to anything. So he had, first he claimed that they couldn't into school. So what I did was I applied for a tourist visa when they went on winter break to see him. So and he paid for that tourist visa. But instead, they entered the United States on a visa he applied for when he took the passport away from me. And so then he could claim they were residents in America. So it was a trap,
Yeah, I see. So he basically got the kids to come on vacation, and then he had the passports. And because he had the passports, he was then able to claim residency over there. That's what happened, yes?
He took the passport before the divorce, and the judge had to order him to return the passport to me. And when he took the passport before the trial, he applied for a visa.
Oh, okay. So he tricked you.
So he tricked me. So when they went to winter break on him, they, instead of coming in on a tourist visa, which he paid for, and I applied for, they came in on a visa I did not know anything about.
Okay. Now it's becoming clear now, because you told your story so fast that I was like, okay, what happened? London, Georgia, New York, how many kids? Like, what's happening? I know. I tried. You submitted your story to me in email. I started reading it. I was like, oh my God, this is so complex, and this is very complex. Yeah, and that's also problematic for you. I'm going to try and help you put the story together in a way. You know what? And this is like for all the listeners who are dealing with situations like this, or even if you're not in an international case, I really suggest you try and put your story to paper in the most clear way possible. And the way you do that is literally putting on when you have a Word doc on your computer, you just put like, okay, this is what, 2004, this is what happened, 2005. And you just keep it only really factual, right? This is when the kid was born. This is where the dad was. This is what the dad did. This is where the kid is. This is what I did. Like really just basic facts. So when someone reads through it, it becomes immediately clear, especially when it's so complex, right? It's really important that you are able to present that, because a lot of times what happens is because people don't, the moms don't have their stories like really clear, it becomes very hard for everyone else to help. So I suggest this for all the protective moms, to write your story down and try to do it in a chronological way with the dates. And, just like I did on the website that I made for my daughter Jasmine, and for anyone who wants to look at that, it's www.freejasmijn.com, and that's spelled www.freejasmijn. So take a look at that website and see how I formatted that. And I'm not, you can use that website as an example to make a website of your own story. You can use WordPress, which is free. You can start a free WordPress account, and you just you can make that website just like I made mine. Because once you have your story somewhere for people to find, then you can just send them the link, and people can read it and start seeing what happened. And the reason why this is important is that, let's say, we go and try and go to the United Nations and present these cases to try and change these international treaties to make sure that everyone gets their human rights met, right? Because that's, blatantly being violated in your case, in my case as well. Then the people, these decision makers, these policy makers, can actually take a look at all our stories, right? If we all have websites, and we started gathering them as well, right, these stories, but we need to actually have this together, because as long as we're running around frantically and traumatized, and you have another baby as well, so you're like completely overwhelmed with grief and caring for a baby in the meantime, right? At the same time, so if we're all running around like this and not getting our story straight, then it's harder to achieve the change that we need to achieve, right? So this is one of my objectives, is to get all of this consolidated in one kind of database, so we can present that to the United Nations and say, look at what's happening here. These thousands of mothers have lost their kids because these fathers are tricking the moms. In your case, it's tricking. In my case, too. I mean, in my case, the father said that there was free legal aid in the United States, and then there's none. There's no such thing. And like in your case, same thing in my case, the judge basically said, well, the father's saying that there are pro bono lawyers in the United States, so you should be just fine over there. And it didn't matter that I said, no, it doesn't exist. They just believe the father. So we've seen this also in Martine's case, right? In other cases, international cases where the fathers are believed, and it doesn't matter whether the mom is submitting evidence of the opposite. It seems to be disregarded. Even when there's expert evidence of child abuse involved, it just gets disregarded. And this seems to be the agenda, right? That fathers seem to have some more power than women still. So we still have not reached equality in this world, and we need to work on that. And the good news is that more and more women are standing up to this type of stuff. I don't know if you've heard the latest victory. I just posted it on my Free Jasmijn Facebook page. It's about Marion. She is also from Denmark. Have you heard that victory? Have you heard about this victory? Yeah, Marion. Yeah, I just put it on there. It's Marion Olivia Weilharter, and she had a case in Denmark. She is from Austria, and her son was taken to Denmark by the father, and the Danish authorities did not protect her son against abuse, against the abusive father. And she had her Hague Convention case overturned. This just happened a few days ago, which is a great victory. So if you go to my Facebook page, my Facebook/Free Jasmijn, FreeJasmijn, then you'll see the post there. And I would like you to look at that, because Marion, she had her Hague Convention case overturned on the grounds of discrimination against women. And I believe she is the first one, as far as I know, at least. I haven't heard of this before. She submitted it under the optional protocol to the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. And what I'm suggesting is that we all start submitting this, because she was in the same situation that you and I are in, and we are being discriminated against, purely the fact that evidence is not being looked at, and these kids are just, it's like a rubber stamp. They're all appointed to the fathers. And what's going on here? So if she has won her case, then we can also use her case and say, hey, look, you've approved it here, so why not approve it in our case? Because our case is exactly the same, right? She's setting like a precedent for our cases. And especially since in your case, the father of your kids, he's not even American. It's like in the first show when I had Emma on, it was a Dutch father taking Dutch children to the United States and then having some judge there say, like, yes, they can stay. I mean, it's just insanity, all these treaties are broken.
But also gather that the father, lived in New York. I mean, the children have lived 9 years with me, and while he have lived in other countries, because I mentioned that he moved to London in 2006, and then he moved back to New York, and so we did not live in the same state for 9 years, and the kids were sent back to a state they had never lived in.
Yeah,
and that didn't have jurisdiction over the kids. So
there's some noise. There's some noise where you're at. I don't know what it is. Maybe turn down a computer a little bit. That might help. So yeah, the kids lived with you for 9 years. So I'm still trying to kind of get a more simplified picture of the complexity of your situation. Your kids lived with you for 9 years and then were taken to the United States with their father, who is not even American, and they are still there, and he's not allowing contact, right? Or at least editing emails and stuff.
I cannot email the father because, I can't trust him. He would say something and then he would change it. I mean, I can't trust. He will make up lies. I mean, even when the kids were supposed to be picked up after the Hague Convention, he tried to put daily fine on me on a date he had not given me, and so I was not cooperating. And then when the court agreed that when the kids had to be sent back, and they didn't put any daily fine on me because all the evidence I had that he had not sent me a date, he changed the date anyway. So he wanted to pick them up earlier. So it's pointless for me to communicate with him because I can't trust him. He will make things up. It's
well, I have a remedy for this, and I'm going to also use it for my daughter Jasmine. There's an echo on it. Hold on. Trying to fix this microphone. If you hear an echo, just let me know as well. So I just actually, before I came on the radio show just now, I was just recording a way for our kids to get in touch with us without the fathers being involved. Because the courts are not going to help us get in touch with our children, and we have human rights to be in touch with our children, and our children have the human rights to be in touch with us. And if these courts are not going to implement human rights in our lives, then we have to take matters into our own hands. I created a recording about how our kids can set up special email accounts that cannot be traced and cannot be tracked, and I've made like a video tutorial of how they can do that, and I'm going to share that on my website, and I'll post the website underneath this radio show, underneath the recording when it's done, so everyone can find it. It'll take me a few hours to put it together tonight, but I'll post it tonight. And with this, it'll be very helpful for you and your kids as well. Because once they get the link to the tutorial, it'll show them exactly how they can create an email account and get in touch with us without the fathers knowing. And this is really important because how else do we know whether emails are even written by them, right? How do you know that the kids are even getting our emails? If the fathers have access to the emails of our kids and they're trying to boycott the contact, they're going to toss out the emails that we sent to them before the kids open their accounts, right? They'll log in before the kids do, and they'll delete our emails, so the kids, our kids, cannot find our emails to them. And then the other way around, they can send emails from the kids' email accounts pretending to be them and saying whatever. So we never know who we're actually communicating with. So we have to find a new way to get in touch with them. And I figured out how to do that. And I'm going to share that with all protective moms around the world and all kids that are in this situation. So we can first start to just reestablish contact, because this is just insane. And I want everyone to know, and that's why this radio show is important, that this is happening at a global scale. This is happening with thousands of moms and thousands of children every year, that the kids are completely cut off from talking to their moms, and then they walk around confused as to what's going on. And they're being told things about the moms that are often not true. So they don't know what's happening. And this is damaging to them. This is damaging to them emotionally. It's damaging to them psychologically. They're suffering from maternal deprivation. It's going to have a huge impact on them, not just now, but in the future. And we must stop that by many means necessary. And we got to be smart, and we got to teach our kids to be smart about it too. We have the internet now, and there are ways for them to contact us without the dads knowing, and then we can have normal conversations. I mean, this is just outrageous that we are even having to discuss this. We can't have a normal conversation with our own kids. I don't have a criminal record. Do you?
No, none.
No. So we're safe moms, right? You've taken care of your kids for 9 years by yourself. I took care of my daughter for 10 years by myself. I have no criminal records. I have nothing against me. There's no court order that says that I'm a bad mother. So why in the world can we not talk to our own children? I mean, this is outrageous. So if the courts are not going to...
What is so difficult, Geerte, is when, he had my oldest daughter turned against me for false claim and so on, and, he was encouraged her to do drugs and all this stuff. And I don't know how to reach out to her, because I know once she emailed me, and it was so clear that it was her dad's words who were emailing me, I mean...
Yeah, so you're emailing with your daughter, and instead of you're emailing with the father instead of with the daughter. This is why I stopped all that altogether. That doesn't make any sense. So let's talk about your daughter. She is. Are you talking about the oldest one right now, the one that's 18 years old that has started doing drugs as a result of this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking about the oldest one, but I can't reach her at all. I mean, I just, the only thing I could hope is that, someday she would know, she would find out about the truth and she will get back to me. But right now, I can't reach out to her. I'm trying to reach out to the two youngest one, and it's getting harder and harder,
Okay, so the first thing... The first thing you need to... Yeah, the first thing you see that the reason why he's able to brainwash them is because he has been able to isolate them from contact from you, so you can't talk to them, and he can tell them whatever, and they're confused. So, and as I've said this before, children who suffer from maternal deprivation, they often get into drug abuse once they reach puberty, once they go into adolescence, because they can't handle the psychological and emotional damage from that. So the first thing for your kids would be to reestablish that contact. And this is why having a website is important, because let's say your daughter, and this goes for both of your daughters and your son, they want to get in touch with you. How can they find you on the internet? They have to be able to type in your name in Google and then find you somewhere and find the story and find ways to get in touch with you. And if they can find a website that is about their situation, where you can do your story, where you can explain what happened to them, then at least the first contact that they have with you is your side of the story, so they can start to think for themselves, right? And they'll have a way to get in touch with you. So this is why it's important to put together a website. And this is hard for you because you have a baby right now, and I'm sure you have your hands full with that. It's very challenging. But I will share that link to you, at least for for them to get in touch with you, and then we'll think of ways to have them get in touch with you so you can undo this the bullshit that's being told about you. That's really important, so the kids at least can get support and contact with you. For anyone who has any input, anyone who's listening right now and who can help Kristen get in touch with her children who are in New York somewhere, please call in at 347-850-8617. And what I suggest we do now is take a little break. I have another protective mom on who is embroiled in a international custody case, and she hasn't had contact with her daughter in 3 years. It's just horrible. I was going to have another mom on who is seeking asylum in the Netherlands, but I don't see her on the dashboard yet. So what I'm going to do is play our theme song for a second and have the other mom come on and tell her story, and then let's discuss with the three of us what we're going to do. How we can help each other to get back in touch with our kids, and what we can do to maybe follow along with Marion's case and tag on to that and file discrimination against women cases with the United Nations. Sounds like a successful way to go. I want to keep this hopeful. And I got some numbers going on over here. People calling in. One has the last four digits of 3725, and I'm gonna put that guest on, and I'm hoping that this is Claire calling in from the Netherlands. So let me see if she's there. Hold on for a second. Claire, are you there? Is this Claire? Go ahead.
Hello?
Yep.
Hi, my name is
Who's
Cindy.
This? Hey, Cindy.
Cindy?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Excellent. Now, Cindy, you are a mom, a protective mother in the Netherlands, and your daughter is in the United States, and you've been looking for her for 3 years now. She was taken to the United States by the father in a fraudulent way. Tell us what happened in your case.
Well, my daughter's actually been missing since 16th of January 2012, so it's actually 4 years.
Okay.
The situation is that this is actually a repeat abduction by the father. Let me introduce myself. I have 3 kids. My son is actually 20, who also was a victim of child abduction by his father. Unfortunately, things went to my favor, and the father was deported to Pakistan. So I actually have children from different fathers, different choices, different lives. However, I also have 2 girls. The middle child is one we're actually talking about. Her name is Monique. And Monique has actually been abducted before in 2007 after we broke up. And he hid her for 6 months without attending school in the Dallas, Texas area. And in the meanwhile, while I was looking for her through all the school districts, like Dallas-Fort Worth, Grapevine, everywhere you can think of, I looked all over the place for her with my son in the back of the car. And I did it actually outside my workplace. In the meantime, I was actually concerned where my daughter's no contact, nothing. So he tried to get custody of my daughter on the basis that I abandoned my daughter, I neglect her, I was incompetent parent, and he wanted to split the children up because before we actually officially moved out, he actually offered my son that he wants to pay me $25,000 and disappear out of his life, and he has 2 children. He's not even a custodian parent. So the Dallas court actually went to court, and the Dallas court of Judge David Lopez, the 256 court, he filed for custody on my daughter, and that actually backfired. because the assistant judge actually told him you cannot split children who are actually from the original house. You cannot do that. So I was awarded primary residential conservatorship and management conservatorship, and it was not a 50-50 on a joint custody deal. It was 80-20. The father was ordered by the Dallas courts that he had to pay child support and that he is also prohibited of full possession of my daughter. Now, he was not quite happy with this order, so therefore he starts terrorizing me from the point of 2007 all the way up to 2010. It was to the point that it got so heavy that after even working 2 jobs, I lost 1 job because of this. Not only that, is that my co-workers at the cable company where I work, I'm not going to mention names, some people know it, some people don't, is that, they were concerned about their safety because he was constantly calling 16 times a day while I was working in a call center environment. Calling the office that it's emergency, and there was no emergency. So I was constantly getting written up or put on probation. I was about to lose my job. But in the meantime, my daughter was getting through this whole turn of this, starting having nightmares. She just started telling me, like, my dad, he just likes to give me baths. And I mean, she's 9 years old, and a girl of a 9-year-old don't need to have her father supervise her while taking a bath. Absolutely no. So that was actually pointed against him, and I did report that. However, he just continue wherever he was doing because she's coming back home from her visit on every other 2 weeks for visitation that she constantly have nightmares. And she's constantly come back into my bed and trying to find comfort because she was actually scared. She didn't tell me why she was scared. She could not tell me what her nightmares are all about. So this was going on again and again. The harassment keep going. The threats keep going. He keeps saying, if you don't answer my phone, I'm calling the police. I'm calling Amber Alert. I will go and do anything. I'm going to destroy your life. And I will make sure you lose your job so you cannot be financial for his children. So he was pretty much want to destroy me on that part. So in 2009, I wrote a letter that I am leaving and I need to go to the Netherlands because he knew since 1989, since I met him, that I want to go back home because I went been through 1 domestic violence relationship marriage, and I am not going to be determined, even after I broke up with this man, the father of my daughter, to go through this whole turmoil with my little girl and my son, being constantly looking over the shoulder and getting anxiety attacks by this man. So he went to 2002, so I need to get a paperwork from him so that I can go to the Netherlands, according to the Den Haag Convention. I always follow the law because we're all dual citizens. I am, so is my children. Therefore, with all that, he actually filed a court paper against me that he's going to file sole custody on my daughter. That didn't fly as well with it. The same assistant judge. That didn't fly well. He also said in court he wants my daughter Dutch citizenship to be revoked from her identity. He also said that he wants to help me capture in the United States in Dallas County, and then he can say where we can go. This didn't fly as well with the judge. The judge actually said you cannot hold someone against their will and keep them captive in this country. You cannot do that. They can't. They can go to the Netherlands. This is where they have family. They can go wherever they want to go. He also started it again. Well, then I want the Dutch passport to be in a vault with the Dallas courts. That didn't fly also, so strike 3 on him again. It kept going on like that, on and on. But eventually I got the paper signed that I have permission to fly and go abroad with my children. We've not even been there for 1 day, and he starts threading through the emails and again and again and again. So I said, I'm not answering anymore. I have to think, what should I do? Should I go back to the United States, go through the same thing, or for my children's safety and ability to have them have some clearness to stay there and have an education without being in fear? And not only that, for myself as well, because in the email he wrote to me, you need to come back ASAP, because I'm telling you, because this is what the court says. The court didn't say that. That's actually his said, because he's been so narcissistic about it. He will have my head on a silver platter served to the judge, or I will rot in hell in jail in the United States and never see my kids again. He always has used my children since 2002, because I went to the Netherlands before, because my mom was dying of liver cancer, that he will have me arrested, that he has contacts with the FBI. He has the power to do anything he wants. And this continued on and on in relationships until I said, this is it. I can't do it anymore. My daughter had anxiety attacks. My son, who has autism, PDNOS, has started having anxiety attacks. We are afraid to answer the phone every single time it rings. So when we come here, my daughter's nightmare has stopped the day when we got here. She finally got rest. She finally actually came out of the shell, and she started telling me what was going on, because she was promised not to tell things. She was even telling me that she went to Tennessee without any permission from me. He was not even allowed to leave the state. He has captured my daughter, stayed over a long time, extended his time with her on the weekends, and it just gets to the point it's so odd. But when he actually filed with the State Department, he noted on the State Department in writing and notarized it that he has daily custody over my daughter. The State Department refused to help him on that. So, therefore, he used this documentation. He actually went to the Dutch Central Authority. The Central Authority started processing a case against me without investigated who has custody. Even though
let me stop you first. Let me stop you for a second, because the audience might not know what Central Authority is, but that's part of the Hague Convention. The Central Authority is basically the international agency that enforces international custody orders. So basically, he submitted a fraudulent document to the Central Authority with which he started a Hague Convention case against you in the Netherlands, correct?
Correct. He sure did.
And so what happened? And what happened then in the Hague court?
The Hague court told me that I need to return the child back to her original country. That was the first file they did. They did file one. Sorry, let me think again. My mind's going and my emotions going at the same time. I apologize.
No, I don't apologize. Everyone has this. It's you have so much emotion. You know, as protective moms, we're so emotional because this is about our children. You know, it's just so hard to you know. We just had that with Kristen as well. It's really hard to tell your story because there's so much grief there, and you so want to share with the world what's happening because we all need help. We need our kids back, and so I totally understand that you're anxious and that you want to get your story out. But I'm here to help you with that. He filed a Hague Convention case against you in the Netherlands, and from what I understand, because I know your story a little bit, you actually. He submitted fraudulent documentation claiming to the Hague court that he had full custody, but it wasn't written up that way, and the Hague judges didn't understand the legal language that was used in the document. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct, because I actually, the first time I had to do a mediation, I was actually put on pressure to sign documentation. It was actually misled as well, so I actually filed the documentation against it, what I had signed, so that was actually thrown out. But I went to appeal after appeal, but the last one I had was in Leeuwarden by the judge from the Meer, because I looked it up who it was. She told me that, well, I think this nonsense of this threats that I'm seeing is actually a love quarrel. I was not even married to the man. Relationship was past 3-4 years past. And
a love quarrel?
A love
ridiculous.
quarrel. I'm going to tell you. Yeah, that's a love quarrel. Yeah, right. Anyway, let me go back here before I get to my Texas twang going on. The thing is that she even said that, well, since you have 3 children, because I had a youngest born in 2011, you can miss one child. You can live without one child. Since you got 2 other kids to raise, you can miss one child. As if there was like a pickpocket money or something like that you can give it away. Absolutely not. I was furious. My attorney at that time said, it's illegal to legalize kidnapping. That's what it is. They did this actually on a quote of number 13. Some people do not know what the code 13 means, but they were actually using. My daughter was living there for 2 years in the Netherlands.
So according to international treaty, you should have been able to keep your daughter in the Netherlands because she had been in the Netherlands for 2 years, and the international treaty states that once your kid has been there for longer than 1 year, that kid has automatic residence in that other country.
Right,
so
that's
basically, the Hague Convention then gave full custody to the father of your children, and he took her to the United States, and they've broken the treaty again, right? The same in my case. And now you've been looking for Monique for 3 years because he doesn't allow any form of contact. Is that correct?
Not really, no. They gave my daughter to him. He did not have full custody. My paperwork from Texas was still valid as of today. I am still the management conservatorship.
You still have full custody over your daughter, but she is in the United States with him, and you don't know where, right?
No, actually, I have a joint custody, but I am the management conservatorship. I'm the head, the head person that actually controls the situation around the child.
You have primary custody, right? That's what, management conservatory. What a phrase. I mean, it's like we're talking about a piece of real estate here or something. It's ridiculous language.
I know.
So you have primary custody, but nevertheless, the father of Monique has Monique in the United States. And when I remember when we first met, you told me that you were on the internet every night trying to find a sign of life of Monique for the last 3 years. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Because the thing is that the judges in the Netherlands do not understand the term of the word conservatorship. She did not understand who has custody or not, so she actually gave the favor to Forst's father. 5 days after Monique was taken, they found out through a clerk system who actually reread the Texas order that he did not have custody over my child. So when I called in, and I know that they told me that, so they actually said, well, that's too bad. It's your own problem. You're going to find out in the United States. You're going to do it yourself. Since then, I've been on the internet nonstop to find her. Since I did actually background checks before and through a company I worked for in Texas, I knew my way around the internet. So I'm kind of pretty much savvy on it.
But you know what? It's unfair because when I listen to your stories, the same as in my case was handled in Parliament, and after Jasmine was deported, it came into Parliament, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs was approached, and they didn't want to release any answers. They kept the answers classified, but they did admit that injustice had occurred and there were no charges against me whatsoever. But here we are, you and I, and we have Kristen also on. Our kids are in the United States. The Hague knows that they made a mistake, but then they tell us, well, you go figure it out over there in the United States. And how are we supposed to get our kids back if we don't have any money? I can't even cross the border. Same with Kristen; she can't cross the border. We're made out to be child abductors, and the fathers have our kids, and there's no contact, and we're being alienated from them, and our children are deprived of their mothers. It's outrageous. I'm going to put Kristen back on because as we were during the break, we were on Facebook and you were giving me some really good tips for Kristen that I want to have you share with her about the fraudulent issue. So I'm putting Kristen back on. Hey, Kristen, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so Kristen, meet Cindy, and Cindy is going to give you some help with how to proceed in the United States with the fraudulent issues. Go ahead, Cindy.
Hi, Kristen. I've been checking out because I was listening to your story, and like I said, I was married once before with a Pakistan man who had a temporary residence card, or we call it a residence visa for some people. And there are people who actually do sponsor this person who to be there in the United States. However, you can file a revoke form in towards the United States to the immigration office that he is actually illegal there and that your children actually been misconduct, been taken there and been kept there from you for 9 years. You can actually do this. It happened on my side. My ex-husband actually was deported after that.
Oh,
so
really?
it is actually, it can be done. Don't give up hope because there's a will, there is a way.
I mean, there's a lot of things he's not complying with the court order. Like he's supposed to pay alimony and. Child support services were after him and tried to take his driver's license because he didn't want to pay child support. There's so many things on him, which is, against immigration law.
So this is a great tip that Cindy is giving you. She's saying, like, write a letter to the immigration service and have them revoke the visa of the kids and the father. And then, have that basic international legal notarized permission form and state that it's expired and needs to be. Yeah, am I saying that correct, Cindy?
Well, only that, yes, actually it is. But you can also, since he actually is a residence card holder, every residence card gets a so-called Social Security number. It's actually called the I-10 number. That's actually for people who are actually with another citizenship living in the United States. There's another thing that you might have to track there as well. Once you have that, even though you try to revoke his driver's license because he's not paying child support and etc., you can find it with a Social Security number. You can find anyone like that in the United States, but you need to know how. And also you got to do that through a legal system. You can go to a judge. You can actually do anything. You can do all you can because you can't get this done. I'm sorry, I repeat myself again.
That's okay. It sounds like really helpful information. Have you tried that yet, Kristen?
No, I have not tried. I know I had a friend of mine who was trying to, get him deported out of the country because of all his illegal things, and nothing happened. Well, I mean, the thing is that when I spoke to IS, they told me that, that there's an investigation going on, but they can't tell me anything because they're protecting the criminal. So
right, but
we
have to be smart. We have to be smart,
yeah.
And we have to come up with solutions. So I think this might be a way for you to achieve that. No, if you file with the immigration service and you submit all the evidence to the immigration service, then they're going to have to investigate that, and that might be your ticket out of, at least for your children, right?
Yeah, I get access to my children. That's basically what because basically right now, he could go to South America, and I wouldn't know where he is. He can
Right.
go anywhere.
So it's important that you do this right away, I would say. As long as he's in the United States, you can get him on these immigration issues and these fraudulent papers that he's filed and all these lies, and show this to the immigration service and have them go after his green card, right? Or he doesn't even have a green card, right?
He has a green card. He only got a temporary visa.
He has a temporary visa.
Yes,
so
there's a residence card, but if a temporary visa expires, but he will not get a social security number or any kind of identification number in order to work, because he has to work.
Oh, that's perfect.
How are you going to support his kids?
Yeah.
How are we going to support the kids without working?
No, he's working. He has a social security number. He has a visa which, permit him to work in America.
Mm-hmm.
That's a residence card.
Yeah.
So, but you can fight that too, right? Because if you look, I had a green card for 25 years in the United States, and you have to, be an honest resident there and file your taxes and do the right thing, because otherwise that can be revoked. So, if you can prove to the immigration service that he has fraudulently done things with money and here, then with the custody arrangement, then the immigration service is going to go after him and will revoke his social security number, so he can't work anymore. Am I getting this right, Cindy?
Well, actually, what I did with my ex-husband, let me say that, because he was actually a residence card holder. Because he actually violated the protective order for domestic violence, because I was pretty beat up. You have to show that with the letter of they call it an I-30, and they may have changed the forms lately because it's been more than 20 years ago. You have to apply with the proof of documentation that he actually had violated the laws in the United States, because it says if you actually commit a crime and you are actually a residence card holder and you actually commit a crime, it will become on your record. When you become a citizen, or even as a guest worker on a residence card, you're supposed to follow the rules and not be in any tangle with the law.
Correct.
According to your information, Kristen, it sounds like he is actually tangled in the law. That means without documentation, if you got your friend in the States, in New York, and has the documentations to pull it up by the courts, you can add it on to the file form, and you have to call the immigration, and maybe your friend could do it, and ask, can I file an I-30 to revoke this man's residence card, because these facts that I'm going to give you.
Okay. Because
that sounds awesome.
Even the IRS agents, when I spoke to them, because they were looking at the signature, they could tell that he had falsified my signature on paper forms, several ones. And when they found out that he was not even an American citizen, they would say, do you know that he could get kicked out for this, And I said, I know.
Yes, he can. Yes, ma'am. Yes, he can, because when he actually fraudulent paperwork said that the kids can stay, you must, according to law and international law, must have a copy of that documentation, and it has to be notarized.
Yeah.
Okay,
so this might be your way out, huh?
He has done fraud. There's a way out. That's fraud right there. It's against the whole Constitution of the United States. I'm American by birth and born in the Netherlands, but I learned quick how things work in the United States because I've been in court all the damn time. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, this is really helpful information, right? And this is why we have this program. We're here to help each other and figure out how we can get our kids back. So this might be the way for you to get your kids back, Kristen. That's really helpful, Cindy. Yeah. Thank you so much. That's very awesome.
Yes, thank you so much. This is great.
Yeah, there is an I-30 form petition for alien relatives as well. But you can actually write a letter against with it that he needs to be revoked because he's not supposed to be there. Your children not supposed to be because you've been looking for 9 years and he's been hiding in New York. And wherever he is, I
had the kids for 9 years and I lost the hate convention, and then the kids was sent back to him in New York City to a state they never lived in.
Right, but Right. So, but it really doesn't matter that you lost, because the fact is that that you have evidence of fraud, so you can have his permanent residency revoked. Right. So this is great information. I'm hoping also other listeners who are in international custody cases, if you're listening right now, then this could be very helpful for your situation as well. If you have your ex-husband and the father of your kids who is in the United States on a green card, and you have evidence that they are committing fraud, you can use this against them with the I-30 form and file with the Immigration Service. This is awesome. So,
but you sorry to interrupt, Geerte, but you need to contact the Immigration Services and ask them what is the correct form, because I found an I-130 form, but I need an I-30 form. I can't find the right forms here. But they can actually help you on there, get the right track. They even can send it to your home, or even find it online with a link.
I have another caller calling in right now that I want to put on, and this is Claire. I hope. So I'm going to try and get her on right now. So hold on, Kristen and Cindy, for a second. And let me see.
Are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank goodness. Okay.
Okay, turn down the volume on your computer, or because there's an echo on the line.
Is it better now?
Yes, it's better now. I've put Kristen on hold and Cindy on hold. I still hear the echo though, so you need to speak a little bit out of, take some distance from your phone or something.
Okay.
Or are you on a
better?
computer?
No, I'm not. I'm on Magic Jack.
Yeah, on Magic Jack. I'm not sure what Magic Jack is, but let's try and have you tell your story. If there's a lot of echo, we might have to find another way for you to call in. So, Claire, tell me about your story. You have 2 babies, and you're involved with an abusive father. You're American, yes? And
yes.
You're currently in the Netherlands with your babies. Tell me what happened in your situation.
Well, my history with the father of my 2 youngest children is quite long, so I won't go into all of that. But he was my very first boyfriend. I met him when I was just 17 years old, and I was fresh out of the foster care system, and I had no family, and I was very naive.
The connection is, hold on, the connection is really bad.
Sure.
It's kind of breaking up. Try
a little better now.
Yeah, it's a little better now.
The father of my 2 babies, I met him when I was just 17 years old. He was my first boyfriend, and I was fresh out of the foster care system. I had come from a very isolated but also abused childhood, so I think I was kind of ripe for abuser. And I was 17 years old. He was 21. He was immediately extremely abusive, but I had no experience with relationships. And when I look back on that, the physical abuse, the sexual abuse, and the really very effective psychological abuse and control that he kind of programmed my brain. It's really weird when I look at it now. I'm like, I was almost like a cult follower. It was something that I just didn't have the ability to recognize when I was so young then and coming from my background. So he stayed in my life all throughout my life. He'd disappear and then pop back into my life because he was always in some sort of legal trouble. For several years, he was hiding from the authorities because he had frauded the federal U.S. government and the military out of hundreds of thousands of dollars. He had been working as a pimp and using these prostitutes to cash these fraudulent checks that he had made for the United States Navy. And, he's just a schemer. He's always been that way. So he would disappear, then he would pop back up. And I had this really weird dynamic with him that now that I'm a lot older, I think it's almost a Stockholm syndrome, because I think I'm a pretty smart woman. I'm a very strong woman. But for some reason, when I'd be around him, I I had this real misplaced loyalty, and I had this really warped admiration. So no matter how abusive he was, no matter how much he violated my boundaries, no matter how horrible his threats, I mean, I talked him out of murdering his ex-wife multiple times. I would meet him in the middle of the night, and he would tell me how he was planning on killing her, cooking her, and eating her in front of their daughters. And I actually sat in front of this person and listened to that and talked him out of it, and still hugged him and said, I love you, and I'm always going to be here for you. And I look back on that and think, what the heck was wrong with me that I continued any kind of friendship with this person? But I did, and years later, after my own divorce, I was very vulnerable, and he had gotten out of prison for one of his many offenses, and he had stolen. When he got out of prison, he had started working for a medical supply company, and within a couple of weeks or months of working for them, he had stolen all of their contract information and found an investor to pretty much rob the business owner out of his business overnight, but legally. He's a clever man when it comes to really hurting people. So overnight he went from being fresh out of prison and barely making ends meet to making, close to $1 million a year, and he was very flamboyant with his money. And he was very abusive of his ex-wife, horribly abusive of her, really bad, and their daughters. And when I was going through my divorce, just come out of my divorce, he told me that he had never stopped loving me. He loved my older two children by my ex-husband as his own, and that I feel so stupid saying this now because it sounds so wrong that I even listened, but that he was only abusive to his ex-wife because of who she was. And never mind the fact that I had my own abusive back to him, but I just had this real selective memory. And I believed him, or I guess I wanted to believe him, that the things he had done were because of who she was, and that I was somehow special, and that I had conveniently forgotten all the times he had choked me and busted my head into windows and stuff when I was 17. I just forgot. It was the weirdest thing. I knew it was there, but I ignored it. And so I got involved in a relationship. Am I talking too long?
Well,
is it okay?
It's okay, but I'm trying to get to the situation where you're currently at.
Oh, okay.
So I'm
the situation that I'm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I didn't know how far you wanted to go back. So the situation I'm currently at is I got pregnant by him, and when I was 3 months pregnant, he went way into abusive territory and just got really psychologically abusive and very, very physically abusive toward my children. I guess not directly physically abusive with me, but he threatened. He only hit me once, but he was very threatening and scary. And during that pregnancy, he ended up losing all of his business and wealth and attempting suicide multiple times and he left me during that time. And then he went into a mental institution for several months, and then rehab for, I think, steroid addiction for several months. He wasn't at our daughter's birth. And then when he got out of rehab and the mental institution, all these different places he was in, his mother promised me that he was on medication, he was much better, and I was trying very hard to support this new baby on my own while working and such. And there reached a point where I was really desperate for someone to help me with her, just so that I could work a little bit longer. And I made the mistake of calling upon him, and within a couple of days of relying on him, he raped me. And it was shortly after his brother died, and it ended up being a real big deal because my oldest daughter, overheard, and I made the mistake of confiding in a public service agent. Well, I don't know if it was a mistake or not, but they sent out child protective workers to my older two kids' schools saying, does she have a mentally ill, violent man coming to that house that's raping her, and these kids are being witness to it. And the social worker came out to me, and their whole presentation was such that I was afraid to confess what had happened because it made it sound like I would be discredited as a mom, and my kids would have been taken.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably was making some bad decisions, but I don't know that was the appropriate. I think I needed help and protection and not more threats. because I was in such a desperate circumstance, you know. And so I said, well, it wasn't really rape. I said he just really pressured me, and he's just really assertive. And by the time the social worker had come to meet me, I already knew I was pregnant. And anyone who knows me knows that I've always been passionately pro-life when it comes to me because of my own background. I couldn't ever have an abortion. So I knew I was going to have this fourth child. So there were all sorts of mixed feelings. One, I was afraid I was going to lose my children if I admitted the truth that I was being abused. My kids had been exposed to domestic violence, and I had been raped. Two, I knew I was going to have a second child by this man, and I didn't want to go through a second pregnancy totally alone. And three, I was scared of how he'd retaliate if I did manage to get the courage to go through a pregnancy alone. Voluntarily, and also incriminate him for rape when he was already on probation for domestic violence with someone else. I was scared because the likelihood of him getting a conviction was slim to none, and what if he came after me and hurt me worse? So there were all sorts of reasons that I didn't tell the truth, and so it went down into my medical records as coercion. And there were several weeks after that, about 2 months after that, when I found out I was pregnant, where I actually entertained having him in our lives only because I knew I was about to have four kids. And, you know, my self-esteem wasn't the highest before. And then I knew I was going to have 4 kids by 2 different men, and my sense of self-worth was just very, very low. But the abuse kept continuing and getting worse. And on Christmas Day was actually the last day we saw him while I was pregnant with my son. Because his abuse just got really intense. It spilled over into my kids, being very physical, and he was out of our lives. And I worked very hard that whole pregnancy, and I drove myself to the hospital for labor, and got out and went back to work. And he wasn't a part of our lives. He only saw either child a handful of times. He was at neither of their births. He's never contributed financially. I supported both babies totally alone, and there was about a 1-week period in March where I needed to work late for my job. I just gotten a huge pay cut because I was working in commission sales, and I was desperate. I couldn't afford to pay for extended daycare. I was totally desperate. Again, I don't have any local family, and I made another poor decision. I had no one else to call on. It was like, are you going to lose your job, or are you going to just make a desperate risk, take a desperate risk? And I called upon him, which is very regrettable because I ended up abusing my children quite badly just in that period of time. And I came home and I told him, I said, I promise you, I'll never ever have him around us again. So I called him and I said, hey, you don't have to pick them up from daycare for me. It was about a week and a half that he did that for me. And he told the judge recently that he was picking his kids up every day, which was a joke. I said, you don't have to pick them up from daycare for me anymore, but if you want to have visitation with the younger babies, you know, we'll have to arrange some sort of supervised visitation or something. And I never heard from him. I didn't hear from him at all. And in July or August, I petitioned the court to establish paternity so that I could get a little bit of financial assistance because he collects disability for his mental illness. So my 2 babies would have gotten some sort of benefit, monthly benefit for that, since he can't work or pay child support at all because of his mental issues. And when I did that, I didn't even expect him to show up in court, but he did. And when I just told the judge, hey, our baby together is a product of rape. He's bipolar. I think he has schizophrenia as well, but he's severely bipolar. He's on probation for domestic violence. I'm okay with supervised visits. Well, the judge pretty much just cut me off and acted like nothing I said mattered. She told me that the rape she said, I don't want to hear about what he did to you. I want to hear about what he did to your kids. The rape's and abuse of you. It has nothing to do with your kids. Those are almost verbatim her words. And then when I tried to tell her what he had done to my children, I'm not specifying here the different things he had done to my different kids because I don't want to put that on them. But she said that she didn't want to hear any of that because she only wanted to hear things that were less than 3 months old, and we hadn't seen or heard from him in more than 4 months. So there was nothing. She literally would not allow me to elaborate or share any details of how abusive he was. And I brought it back. There's a 10-year restraining order against him, and all she said was, "Wow, that's a long restraining order." I mean, she just had no care whatsoever. So she said that she'd humor me by giving him supervised visits for 30 days, but after that they'd change. And he didn't really follow up on the supervised visits until literally like the 30th day. And at that point, I had already made plans to go to France with my children for 3 months because I went, oh, this guy's he's not doing his part. We're out of here. I'm going to go do some healing and have some positive experiences with my kids. And while I was in France, we were there for about 1 month, and he took the opportunity of my being absent as well as my losing my cell phone, which he knew about because I told him and his mom knew. He took that as an opportunity to get ex parte orders through that court, where he used the paternity test that we'd recently obtained to accuse me of abducting his children, set the DA out on me with the child abduction unit, pursuing me like crazy, and penalizing me by giving him custody of my 2 small toddlers that he had no bond with. So it's just been a nightmare ever since.
So you went from France to the Netherlands at that point?
I went from France to the Netherlands, which now I did a mistake, and the only reason I did that was because I was so terrified. At first, when the district attorney first called me, I thought, oh, well, surely they're going to look at the records and fix it. They'll make a couple phone calls, and tomorrow they'll laugh this off and clear it up, and I'll see them in January for our regular hearing. But I realized after a couple conversations that they were actually trying to make a case against me. It became really clear. They were contacting my professional associates, my ex-husband, my former foster mom. I mean, it was so tough. They were really, fighting hard for this guy who's on probation for domestic violence and had no relationship with my children, hasn't supported them one iota, isn't even their birth certificates. And they were really pursuing me. It was very strange.
You're still breaking up a little bit. It's kind of a bad connection, but I kind of want to fast forward. So then you came to the Netherlands and you requested asylum here in the Netherlands. I'm in the Netherlands as well.
Yes.
And so recently, it's from what I understand, you lost that asylum case. Is that correct?
Well, I'm in an appeals process. I don't want to say about it because I don't know who's listening in, but it's been a complicated case. It definitely hasn't been an easy approval, and I have not been approved yet. But I think I would have been better off in France because what I'm finding with the Dutch is I guess there's 20 years ago they gave a woman in a similar situation asylum. They gave her and her children asylum, Holly Collins.
Yeah, you're talking about Holly Collins. And Holly Collins had a documentary made, she didn't have a documentary made, but Garland Waller had made a documentary about Holly Collins. Holly Collins was an American mom who fled a domestic violence issue with the abusive father in the United States, and a judge in the United States had also granted full custody to the abusive father, so she ran off to the Netherlands. And 20 years ago, it was a very different type of situation here in the Netherlands in regards to politics and immigration statuses and refugees. And she was able to actually have her asylum request granted. And because of the documentary, a lot of moms now think, oh, well, if I have to go on the run from the corrupt family court in the United States, I'll have to come to the Netherlands. And we kind of want to make clear here on the show today that that is not a good idea. No. The Netherlands has changed. Every other day, a child gets deported from the Netherlands, and often without the primary caregiver being able to accompany that child. This is what happened to me, and I certainly wouldn't want anyone else to go through that. So I'm glad you are appealing this. And I know I've talked to the Women's Coalition about your case, and they have suggested that you actually get in touch with Holly Collins' lawyer that she used 20 years ago. Okay, perfect.
But
go ahead.
You're right, though. It's very hard in the Netherlands because they have. I think in Dutch, you've had a horrible nightmare experience with the system. I think the Dutch people have a really hard time recognizing nuances in our legal paperwork because it's so organized here and it's so structured here, and things just make sense, that they don't understand when hints are being made and suggestions are being made, and that someone can do something totally unethical to you in America and to your children with no warning or explanation, no justification, oversight.
You're breaking up. You're breaking. We have quite a bad connection, but I know what you're saying. Like here in the Netherlands, there is a very different type of justice system. In the United States, the justice system of the United States is actually based on the British justice system, which is different from the rest of Europe. And we all know that the American justice system is not only different, but it's also very corrupt. And I know we have a lot of American listeners right now, and they are probably nodding their heads yes, because they know that the family court system in America is completely corrupt. And when I went to The Hague for my case, I couldn't even bring that up because the Dutch people assume
they think you're crazy.
Yeah, they assume that the American justice system is A-okay, and you can't even bring this up. They would declare you for like, you know, what are you saying? So you can't even bring this up as an argument. And I want to point this out because what really is happening is, okay, so these Hague Convention judges and these immigration councils that have to approve your asylum will actually deport the children to countries not even knowing what kind of justice system they drop the kids in. We have a big echo. I don't know what's happening on your end of the...
Sorry, the only way I can call in.
I'm going to mute you for a second to get rid of this. Okay, I have muted Claire for a second, so maybe she can work on her audio, and I'm going to bring back in Cindy and Kristen, and I'm going to put you ladies on again. Hold on for a second here. Can you hear me, Kristen and Cindy?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so we've been listening to Claire while Claire is trying to fix her audio a little bit better. So I was just wondering, you know, listening to Claire's situation, whether you both may have any type of information for her in her situation, because she's now stuck in the Netherlands. Yes, go ahead, Cindy.
Well, I'm listening to what she's actually saying. I am so sorry, Claire, that you got stuck here in the Netherlands. That's one thing. I'm American myself, and I'm Dutch too. The system on the Netherlands is so horrible. Killers and murderers, they go for free. They can walk the street freely after their verdict. The judges here in the Netherlands, they actually in 2002, because I actually did research on it this past week, they actually, you cannot sue the judges for wrongful verdicts. They actually removed that clause, actually. And whenever you're actually going through right now is that, Kristen, is that these kids are going to the United States eventually. I have appealed, and appealed. My middle daughter has been ripped out from her brother and sister. They don't care. They don't care. The Netherlands used to be very humane, but like Geerte said, in 20 years, things have changed. They have hardened. They don't care, nothing. I am actually looking to see if Sweden or other countries that actually can help out, because this is not right. I mean, we even try to sue the state of the Netherlands regarding on this, because our rights, our European human rights are being violated. Not only that, but the CRC, the Child of Rights, also been violated. The
UN Treaty of the Rights of the Child. We have the UN Treaty on the Rights of the Child, but it's really not used at all, not implemented at all. It's not looked at, and the children's rights are broken all the time. And, you know, I have the three of you on right now, but I can tell you that because of the social media campaign that I started about my own daughter, there are moms contacting me every day from all over the world asking me what to do. I tell them, like, look, I don't even have my own daughter back. So, I appreciate that you're reaching out to me and I'm here to support you, but we really need to bundle our cases together. And one of the things that I've thought of was maybe taking all our cases not only to the United Nations and following what Marion Wallharter has been doing in regards to discrimination against women and filing a suit about that. But I was also thinking we all go to the criminal court in The Hague, and if we bundle our cases together, we might be a lot stronger in regards to having our case looked at, because these are really serious, severe human rights violations that are happening to us. And, so I'm trying to, this is one of the reasons why I got the radio program, right? I would like people that are in situations like ours, from the Netherlands to the United States, but also other European countries that have custody cases to the United States. Please contact me. Let's bundle all our cases together. Let's go to the criminal court in The Hague and point out that these Hague Convention judges are not implementing the Hague Convention treaty in the proper way in our cases, then we've been completely cut off from our kids. And this is unacceptable. These are crimes against humanity, and it must stop. And because they are crimes against humanity and because they are human rights violations, I really do believe we stand a chance. And, this is not something we only do for our children, but also for other children who are about to enter this situation with their protective mothers, because it's just unacceptable. And we need to get more media on this. And I'm hoping that mainstream media that's listening to this program will listen to our stories. We are just 4 women today talking about our situation, but really, I'll tell you, just Denmark alone has more than 3,000 cases. The Netherlands deports 158 children a year. Norway has thousands of cases, and people massively demonstrate in the streets there. This is a pandemic of mothers who are losing their children to the global family court system. And if you listen to my radio show with Aaliyah Holland from last week, you can hear a little bit about the agenda behind this, what we call the Ivy League Holocaust on mothers and children. It must stop, and we need attention. We need a documentary maker, someone that has some real reach. We'd love to have Michael Moore make a documentary, for example, about the thousands of mothers who are caught in this horrible situation. I'm going to bring in Claire for a second, see if the audio gets better, and see what her next step is. So, Claire, can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly well. I don't know how I sound.
You sound pretty okay right now. My question to you is going to be, right before we wrap it up, there's still some echo. When is your appeals case, when is that happening? Do you have any idea yet? Have they given you a date?
I don't know yet. My case in America is pressing on. I have another hearing coming up in 7 weeks, I think. Well, no, it's less than 7 weeks. I have another hearing coming up on April 1st in America. I have a really good attorney, but she's awfully expensive, and I have a really I have help paying for her, which I'm. But as you know, it's not about your attorney. The attorney is keeping me out of hot water so far.
All right. Well, your connection, your connection remains really bad, so I'm going to mute you again. But you bring up a really great point. We are all financially bankrupted in the process of fighting for our children and trying to take care of other children if we have them, and rebuilding our lives. So I would like to also use this opportunity to tell our listeners, like, please, we need help. We need financial help. We need political help. We need mainstream media help. We cannot allow an entire generation to be dragged into this and separated from their mothers. It's an outrageous pandemic that's going on, and we want to stop this by any means necessary. And then I would like to close the show because we've reached the end. I would really like to thank Kristen and Cindy and Claire for coming on today. Thank you so much, ladies. I wish you all so much luck and prayers. Let's hope we get reunited with our children real soon. And thank you for being on. Thank you for sharing your stories, and please stay strong.
Thank you so much for letting us. Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, and tune in again next week for our 4th show of Hell is for Children. Thank you for listening, and bye-bye.